Hey guys, welcome back. As you probably can see behind me, I'm just making some chicken stock. But I've got some leftover chicken wings and chicken drumsticks. So I thought I'd have a go at making some fried chicken in the air fryer and the deep fryer. Let's see which one does a better job. So we don't need to do much to the drumsticks, but I just want to cut my chicken wings in half. You can see there's this bit of the wing and then this other meaty bit back here. And I just want to cut at the where it connects right there. One way to do it is to go a big chop like that. You can see we cut right through the bone, so keep your fingers well away. Okay. Do another chop. There we go. Might even, you know what, I'm going to keep these last two as whole ones. These bits of the wing are just a bit messy and... Okay, so add them back in. Now what I want to do is I want to get some buttermilk, and I like things spicy, so I've got some buttermilk and sriracha, and I'm just going to let these marinate for a few hours in the fridge, because the buttermilk really helps to break down the toughness, and it makes the chicken really tender and gives it a nice flavor. It's similar to, say, salting the chicken. It kind of relaxes all the muscles and tissue and makes it all nice and delicious and moist. It's also a great way to start adding some flavor. So again, I'm going to add some sriracha, some salt and pepper, and it's just going to start to make a nice kind of flavor for when I start to coat the chicken. And the way I'm going to do it is just dip the chicken in the buttermilk straight into some panko breadcrumbs with some extra spices, but we'll get into that later. So as you can see, I've got the two snap lock bags in front of me, and I'm just going to pour a bit of buttermilk in so that they're all nicely covered. We don't need too much, just so that they've all got some buttermilk on them. You can do this in a glass bowl or any bowl, but I find that the snap lock bags are easy to, I guess, sit in the fridge and also make sure that everything's nicely covered and mixed through. Add a bit more buttermilk in there. Okay, so once we've got that all in there, I'm going to add a bit of a squeeze of sriracha. There we go. So we've got some of that sriracha in there. I'm going to grab the pepper and salt, if I can get the lid off. So as I said, we'll be adding most of our flavors later, but this is just to get a bit of a head start while it marinates in the fridge. Okay, so now I'm just kind of massage all that chili through the buttermilk. Actually, I might add a little bit more buttermilk just to help it mix. Look at me making a mess. Okay, so I'm just going to try and get all the excess air out without spilling it everywhere. So excess air out, and I will close these up. So if you're in a rush, you can really just marinate this for, even half an hour would do a good job. But for me, I might do just a couple of hours. It's really up to you. Obviously, the longer you do it, the better it'll turn out, but half an hour is enough. Okay, mix all that up. I'll close this. Yeah, we nearly had an escape of this buttermilk. Okay, I think there we go. I hate closing these things sometimes, they're so annoying. There we go, finally. Okay, massage it all through so the sriracha can get all over the chicken. Doesn't have to be perfectly mixed, just so it's all in there and the flavors will all start moving about and getting in that chicken. Okay, so as you can see, I've got two lovely milky looking bags of chicken. Now, just the other thing as well, if you don't have buttermilk, you can just use normal milk and add a little bit of an acidic substance like some vinegar or lemon or something, and it'll start to coat all the milk and it'll be pretty much the same thing. Okay, so I'll pop these in the fridge and we'll be back a bit later. Okay, so our chicken's been in the fridge for a few hours marinating. Now let's start the spice mix. So as you can see in front of me, there are quite a few spices that I like to add. It's important to make sure there's lots of flavor. So we're going to start with a nice shake of onion powder, a bit of rosemary, thyme leaves, paprika, just a dash of cayenne pepper where it's quite spicy, a couple of basil leaves or some dry basil leaves, a little bit of oregano leaves, a little bit of smoked paprika, and the tiniest bit of ginger adds quite a nice flavour, a little bit of ground cumin seeds, just the tiniest dash of cardamom, ground cardamom, and a nice bit of ground coriander seeds, and also some white pepper. So once these are in, you want to mix them together, and then last but not least, add some salt. Can't forget the salt. So I have my chicken wings and chicken drumsticks out of the fridge. I've got my nice panko breadcrumb mix ready. So I'm going to start dipping these just into the panko. So in front of me, I've got one board for the air fryer and one board for the deep fryer. I'm just going to start grabbing out these. I think this one's the chicken wings. Yep. And start to dip them into the breadcrumbs. Now, to make this a bit less messy, I like to use one hand as the wet hand and one hand as the dry hand. So that stops you getting, as you can see, my hand's wet and the dry. It just stops making a mess and getting all the breadcrumbs all over your fingers. I mean, it's still bound to happen, but at least doesn't happen on the first piece of chicken. Okay. Transfer it over here. Grab my next piece. Here we go. If you want a super thick crust, you could dip it either back in the buttermilk or into eggs. So the buttermilk is actually acting as, say, the egg replacement, so to speak. So instead of dipping these into an egg mixture, the liquidy bit is coming from the buttermilk. That's going to hold on the breadcrumbs. Or again, you could put flour over this. But I quite like the crispiness that the panko breadcrumbs make. Okay. So I'm trying to fish out some more of these. Okay, here we go. Want to make sure it's nicely coated. Oh. We just want to make sure we get just that bit of excess buttermilk off the chicken too. We don't want to dip it in with half the bag of buttermilk. We want to make sure it's wet so that the breadcrumbs stick, but not so that it's gonna just make a big clumpy mess. Okay, one for the air fryer and one for the deep fryer. Let's move on to our chicken drumsticks. Again, I'm just getting that excess bit of buttermilk off. We'll dip it straight in. Now, as you can obviously see, the drumsticks are quite a bit bigger than the wings, so I'll just need to make sure I cook those a bit longer. Okay, so we've got our chicken coated. I'm just going to save the rest of these drumsticks for a bit later We'll start with this now. I also don't want to overcrowd the air fryer. So I'll just get the deep fryer fired up and heated up, and we'll start cooking these. So what I'm going to do here is I'll heat up the deep fryer and set it to 180 degrees, and these should take about 4 to 5, maybe 6 minutes to cook, remembering that it'll be a bit shorter for the chicken wings, but it may even be 8 to 10 minutes to cook the chicken drumsticks. And while that's cooking, I'm going to start these in the air fryer. I'm just going to spray a little bit of olive oil on them and see what happens. I might need to add some more throughout the cooking process, but I think that with all the moisture it might be drawn out and it might be fine, but I think it's something I'll just have to check on throughout the cooking process. In the air fryer, the drumstick will take about 18 to 20 minutes, whereas the wings might only take about 8 to 10 minutes. But again, I'll just have to check as we go. I've made these in the deep fryer a few times before, but never in the air fryer. So I'm very interested to see how these all turn out and which is better. What I'm expecting is that the air fryer will be a little bit dry, whereas the deep fryer is obviously very oily. But depending how it goes, I feel the best way to cook these may actually be starting with a bit of a deep fry and then ending on the air fryer, just to make sure it's nice and dry and crispy so it's not too oily. But as I said, let's see what happens, and I'm quite interested to see how these go. Okay, so here we are with the results. The chicken in the deep fryer is obviously, as you can see, nice and brown and all that. The breadcrumbs actually came off a little bit. I think I was shaking the basket a bit too early, but oh well. The air fried chicken has a much nicer looking coating. I mean, it's not quite that dark. You can see on the drumstick, the end, I just missed a little bit of oil. I sprayed it about twice during it. I was turning it over. Funnily enough, as you can see, they're a little bit oily on the bottom still. I probably didn't actually need as much spray olive oil as I did, because as I expected, the moisture and the fat from the chicken would be drawn out during the cooking process to actually make the chicken itself oily and crispy. Now to try them. Try this wing. So this is the deep fried. Very crispy, of course, on the outside. But of course, a bit oily still. The inside is nice and moist though. Now the air fried. Again, very moist. Not quite as crispy, but I guess not in a bad way. I have to say, there's something about the air fried one that is much nicer, like it's less rich and the spices are more pronounced, or pronounced almost, than the deep fried. I would say personally I prefer the taste so far of the air fried one, just in that it's not so rich and oily and heavy tasting. Because really, if you think about it, not very much oil, as you saw. I only sprayed a tiny amount of oil on this to begin with. Yeah, this is really good. Let's try this again. The deep fried's definitely still good, but it is much more oily, and it is quite obviously, in taste, much more oily. I'll try this drumstick now. Again, nice crispy outer skin, moist inside. Again, the same kind of still oiliness like the wing. I'll try this one. But again, like the air fried wing, you can see it's pretty hot still, but very moist inside, nice and crispy. So you can see the crispy pankos. Definitely very nice. And again, the flavor on this for some reason is much more pronounced than the deep fried version. And again, they're exactly the same spices mixed over. Quite interesting. Look how juicy that is inside. And that's not oil, that's just the juiciness from inside this chicken drumstick. It's amazing. So I guess that sums up the differences between air frying and deep frying. For my tests, I prefer the air frying, which is interesting. I always, I guess, have this feeling that nothing beats deep frying, but I think in this instance, just that less rich, less oily kind of nature from the air fryer is really quite nice, and obviously much healthier. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.